I love chauffeurs, actually.
I will happily be your chauffeur then. Bob, I think I saw that the recording is now live. So good morning, everybody, as we see people jumping on here this morning. What a day. A lot of people woke up to some big news in the real estate industry. I know I saw it first thing. I have the Wall Street Journal app, and I saw that notification come up when my cat woke me up around 5:30 this morning. So, yeah, Mike, there was a big acquisition that happened with Anywhere and Compass this morning. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened? I'm sure there's not a whole lot of information that you have yet, but what can you tell us?
Yeah, so should be on everybody's email as well because the brand Century 21 did send an announcement out this morning. Mike Meadler sent an announcement, and then also there's a brand town hall. Unfortunately, at 9:30, so we don't want people to jump off of here necessarily. It's not going to be any more than I share with you right now, but basically announced this morning was that there will be a what is truly an acquisition of the Anywhere company and brands by Compass. And they're calling it a merger. You'll see the terminology merger or acquisition. They are two different things, honestly, but for the purpose of why they're calling it a merger, it's a stock trade acquisition, basically. So they're basically just trading stock for equity, and Anywhere is being merged into Compass overall. So all Anywhere shares will become Compass shares, and ultimately Compass, the company, the corporation will own everything. And that's hasn't happened. That's in the process of happening. These types of things don't happen overnight because of regulatory issues with the SEC and also shareholder approvals and things like that. So they've announced their intent and start of the process. They don't expect the transaction to be completed until the second half of next year. So right now we're still Anywhere, we're still independent of Compass. But I know my first thoughts, along with everybody else's, was what does that mean for Century 21? Are we going to be rebranded as Compass? That's obviously the first fear factor. I wouldn't have been happy about that necessarily. I think Century 21 has a lot more brand equity than Compass, and just more consumer recognition and trust overall. But the good news is that means nothing's going to change. Compass will keep the brands independently operated, branded. So, it's service as usual. There's no intent to wipe out all the independent Anywhere brands and make everybody this Compass brand. It would really actually hurt this acquisition. It would be a really poor strategic decision. So then the question comes up, well, why do it at all then? What's the whole point of it, right? So what are the strategic advantages? Well, I mean, the big one overall, it's just the strength in numbers. So you've got the two largest brokerages in the world that have been kind of battling and taking market share. And of course, Compass, as it's grown, it's dipped into Anywhere's market share over the years, which has been annoying for everybody. We haven't seen it in our marketplace yet, which is good, but it's probably not if, it's when they do enter into the market, I guess. And sometimes, it's better to combine forces with your biggest enemy, so to speak, in order to really solidify yourself in the overall market spectrum. And so when these two brands come together, they will end up having a $10 billion market cap or valuation. And we will be by far, not even close, the largest overall brokerage in the world, next to EXP, HomeServices of America, Real Brokerage, and some of the others out there. So we're just going to eclipse everybody. So I think it's a good thing from that standpoint because we really gain a lot of traction and resources, and we're all going to benefit from just greater resources and greater financing and money to work with. And so I think overall in the long run it will be very positive for us. It's only going to strengthen our position. I know there were questions. A good question came up in the CEO circle meeting I just got off here a little while ago, where I'm a part of the top 100 CEOs in all of Anywhere network, so I do like quarterly meetings with them, and we had our meeting this morning at 8:30. And so one of the questions that came up was really good as well. Does that mean Compass will stop recruiting against the Anywhere brands, including Century 21, so we don't have to worry about them cannibalizing, and there's no answer to that right now because keep in mind, guys, there's no moratorium right now on any of the Anywhere brands from recruiting against each other. I mean, we can recruit against Coldwell Banker, ERA, Corcoran Group, Better Homes and Gardens, and vice versa, and we've seen it happen. So I think there will be a sentiment overall, if I have to guess, that Robert Refkin, who will be ultimately, by the way, the CEO, continue to be the CEO of Compass and the overall combined companies, there's probably no advantage to Compass continuing to go head to head with Anywhere brands and trying to capital or cannibalize on their really ultimately what will be their own market share and valuation. So I would think that they will lay off Anywhere companies and let's just all go out and recruit from every other company out there, including EXP and Real, and let's crush them in the marketplace. And I think you'll see that. So I see this as an advantage for us as a franchise, but also as an overall parent company. And you guys can expect a lot more technology and resources here down the road with it. So it's positive, but guys, we're staying Century 21. That will not change. We're going to continue to operate. That will not change. And unless you owned Anywhere stock shares, which I hope some of you did, because it's up
Yes, it was a good morning. It's been a good
60%
morning
this
so far,
morning,
Mike.
and it probably will keep going up. Nothing changes in your world, guys. We're only going to get better and stronger. And by far, at a $10 billion valuation, by the second half of next year, EXP will be a flea on our backs that will just flick off because they're kind of ranked three behind Anywhere and Compass. So I love it. I think overall it's a very big strength for us. So I'll take any quick questions. We don't want to make this book club about that acquisition or pending acquisition, but does anybody have any questions about it?
If anything, I know for sure this sounds like a great topic for our next buyer side, broker side chat.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
Definitely
yeah.
for whenever we go on the road. But yeah, like Mike said, if anybody has something right now, I see
I
Mike
think the
muted
only thing that
himself.
I want to add to that is that Compass went into the real estate market not as a known brokerage, but rather as a hedge fund funded company where they were using stock. They've never been profitable since the day they started. They've been a losing proposition, but they were well funded by people that were buying stocks and hedge fund managers. So what we have here is I think Compass has seen the writing on the wall for themselves where because they're not profitable, they need to be a legitimate company at some point that can turn a profit. And so the best way with all the money that they had based on people buying stock and the hedge funds was to buy a company like Anywhere because this makes them a real valid company that actually can turn a profit as opposed to where before they only existed because of the stock market and the hedge fund managers. So I think this makes them a real player. This is definitely going to change the way that people look at Compass and the way that people look at us. I think in a positive sense because everybody's seen the writing on the wall. They just hadn't made a profit since day one. So I think that's the reason for it. They had a lot of money and wanted to spend it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point there, Mike. Anybody else have anything right now? I see nobody else coming off of mute right now, Mike. But yeah, like I said, I'm obviously Captain Optimist over here, and I woke up excited to see it. There's Mike, you touched on the tech part of it, which there's some fantastic tech part of Compass. And I know Bob, whenever I was talking with him just a few minutes before we started, he was just as excited about that because he knows what's a part of it. So from the agent's perspective, I'm going to push that here to these guys. These are all today's a good day. It's an exciting thing. You
Oh
get
yeah,
kind of worried because the first thing everybody had on their mind was, oh crap, this C21 right here. Do I have to get a new
right.
shirt? Do I have to
New
change something
branding.
up? No, they're not going to. I was talking with Sandra this morning and Angela too, and like the one thing you don't do is you don't do new Coke when the brand works, The brand works. And that's one of the messages that came out on that same Inman article that I know we're all reading this morning, Mike.
Yeah, definitely.
All righty, guys. Well, thank you for the update for what's going on. Definitely plenty more to come. Keep an eye on the Visalia sales meeting tomorrow. And if your office has a sales meeting, by all means, please go to it. But I know the Visalia one will be on Zoom tomorrow, so join that one if you
Yeah.
can. If you're in the area, if you're in Visalia, go there as well. I'm sure there's going to be some more updates to come.
Yeah.
So very
I'll
excited to
touch
see
on
that.
it in my segment tomorrow and take more questions. I don't know that there'll be tremendously more data on the transaction tomorrow, but there could be a lot more questions by then. I'm more than happy to take them tomorrow.
Excellent. Well, the questions that we want to have today is in regards to this thing right here, the quantum real estate agent. We're going to touch on chapters 3 and chapters 4. Quantum Ability 3, Out Hustle the More Talented and Better Educated. What a title. We've got 10 quantum chapters right here. We're going to go over 3 and 4. 3 is that one, and then chapter 4, Becoming a Master of Quantum Time Management. Before we get to 4, let's talk a little bit about 3, out hustling the more talented and better educated. You talked like one of the first things you mentioned on there is grit in chapter 3. So what exactly is grit?
Well, I like the acronym of GRID. I think all of us know what GRID is, and we remember the John Wayne movie. I think it was True Grit. Was that the name of that
That
movie?
is.
Well, I should say we. It's probably those that are a little bit older demographic, like my age on up. But
They
uh,
made a remake just a couple years ago with Jeff Bridges, so it's okay. It's still
yeah, there
relevant.
you go. There you go. Yeah, yeah. So it's greatness requires intense tenacity is the acronym, and I love it. I have a shirt that I bought that I used to wear to the gym. It's a little worn out now. That was called Grit Gear, and that was the quote on the back. And I got a lot of people that just stopped me and, where'd you get that shirt? I tried to figure out who the company was to see if they were for sale. I thought it would do very well maybe if we bought it, but then I realized I don't know anything about selling clothes or shirts, so I need to stay in my lane, which is smart. But yeah, it's really about grit in this business, and I think right now we need to have more grit than ever. And remember that that's what it takes for us to get ahead in a market that's been overall challenging this year and over the last couple of years. I do like the opening quote in that chapter by Thomas Edison, and he says opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and looks like work. So I think part of the misconception when we get into real estate and people are transitioning from maybe another career is that okay, we get licensed and then we get to start making lots of money very, very quick and get to drive those fancy cars and eat at those fancy restaurants and take those fancy vacations and dress outrageously like the people in Selling Sunset and really work 2 hours a day and then go have the three martini lunch and just revel in your own glory. And the reality is that's fiction, guys. This is hard work. I mean, real estate's not hard, meaning it's not complicated, but it's very hard work. And those that are continuing to work hard right now in a challenging market are positioning themselves to do very well as things continue to improve. And really, the work ethic's what it's about. And when I got into corporate America, I mean, I did well in college. I got my act together. I had to pay for my own tuition in college, so I figured, I'm so cheap, I better get my money's worth out of it. So I did very well, but at the end of the day, I certainly didn't get into corporate America the most experienced or even educated. I competed with people that were vying for the coveted marketing positions and things that I was after that had much better schooling, and some of them were Ivy League and better business schools, and they were overall better educated, and honestly, several of them I thought had a lot more talent in the business world or that arena. But I refuse to be outworked. I would not let anybody outwork me back in the day and all throughout my combined careers. And early on I was the first to show up and the last to leave most days. I remember as I finally got into my directorship position, director of national accounts at Hubble Incorporated, there was this competition between me and the CEO on who would leave at night. So I would either be driving by his car out of the parking lot, or he'd be driving by mine, and then we'd joke about it, the next day. But and I don't want to scare people and think, oh my God, I don't want to, I got into this to have some element of freedom. I don't want to be working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And that's not what I'm really saying. It's not within the context of time necessarily, but I mean, you don't need to work 60 hours to be successful or highly successful in real estate, but you do need to put a full-time effort in. And the quantum agents out there, they're just out hustling, they're out grinding, and they're outlasting their competition in many ways. And I would venture to say that the average real estate agent doesn't even put anywhere near a 40-hour work weekend right now. So the bar is really not high from a time context, but but again, the emphasis here on this chapter or this ability is that hard work beats talent when talent refuses to work every time. You guys, I hate to say it. I mean, it's sad to say, I guess, but it's an opportunity. We have very weak competition in real estate because most people, they don't run it like a career. They run it like a hobby, something I'm going to do when I don't have anything else to do because I just got into it to have that freedom to do whatever I want when I want, which basically means you're not open for business, right? So I'm just going to do it when I feel the inspiration to do it, right? But how does the client know when you're open for business when you have no established hours or schedule of when you're available and open for business? And that's horrible. And that's why you lose or don't gain business and why people don't refer to you if you're running your business like that. It's about showing up on a schedule that's communicated where your clients know when to reach you and how to get a hold of you. And this needs to start even before your pipeline is full, guys. It needs to start the discipline of being on a schedule and working and being available and doing the right things needs to happen before your pipeline is full. And it's about treating the business like it's a full-time profession, even before it's not. So when I quit my corporate job with 60 days notice, and this was a 12-year career, six-figure job, stock options, and I worked for just like anywhere, $2 billion corporation, and thought I was I was gonna get a golden parachute someday, and unfortunately, I burned the golden parachute on the way out. I mean, I didn't get a golden parachute. I quit, came back, and took over a six-person brokerage, independent brokerage in the small town of Porterville, with no guarantee of $1 earnings on day one. I had no income on day one. In fact, I had to take $20,000 of my own savings and put it back into the brokerage just to pay the admin and the rent and the bills because there was no money in the operating account. It was a little bit scary. But guess what I did? I showed up that first morning by 8 a.m. and went to work. And did I have 8 hours worth of work to do that day? Well, not exactly. I didn't know what I was going to do completely, but I came in with the mindset I'm going to start this profession like I left the other one because I was highly successful in the other one, and I know that grit is what it takes in any profession in any industry to succeed, and that's what I did. That's what you guys, if you aren't doing that already, you need to start. And it really is a meritocracy. The more you put into this business, the more you're going to gain out of it. I guarantee you, your time will not be wasted if you really put that true grit and focus into it.
No, for
Adam?
sure. You used one of the examples in there. I mean, you talked about it was a good summary actually of the chapter right there because you went over a lot of the bullet points from it. You talked about in the book specifically. It sounds like Sarah may have been you, Mike, because you talked about Sarah being first in the office and then the last to leave. But you have agents who are doing that. So the same thing that you did for your company when you were in that driving position, you wanted to be the one to just work harder than anybody else. You may not have been as naturally talented or like you said the education, but that hard work that trumps talent right there. So you spoke of Sarah, who was the first one in the office, and Sarah was doing okay, but then all of a sudden with that hard work, Sarah got to become a fantastic agent and started being able
Yeah.
to make money for herself and for her family.
Yep. Yeah, so Sarah's not me, guys. Sarah is an agent that I started managing back in 2014, and her name isn't Sarah, by the way. These are pseudonyms. These are to protect the innocent here. I know people have their guesses about who the agents are, but Sarah's still here today, and went from near bankruptcy to just an amazing life, guys, financially, and has just upscaled their lives, and bought a beautiful house recently, and but the work ethic is still there. They're still here on a schedule, start and leave same time every day, doing the same income producing activities every day, whether they feel inspired or not. They keep doing it, and the results speak for themselves. I mean, they've just built an amazing life for themselves, for her, yeah, and her family.
No, it's great. I mean, the discipline, the resilience, you talked about that rock solid work ethic there, and prioritizing. We're going to talk a bit more about time management in the next chapter, but you started talking about it on this chapter a little bit.
Yeah,
Prioritizing the time, the things that you need to do because there's, long days. I mean, here we are on Monday, and all of a sudden we get this big news, and now, your schedule may have changed a little bit. You had to jump on a call this
yeah,
morning at 8:30. So
yeah,
the times change, but you're prioritizing your
yep.
time.
Well, and it's interesting because most people that would have been a curveball, right? Oh my gosh, I got to jump on this 8:30, and I mean, I didn't know till right before 8 o'clock when I looked at my alerts on my phone. Then I was like, okay, well, here's the good news. I actually prepared for this meeting on Friday and had notes prepared, and went through my mind what I wanted to talk about. So that's a perfect example. How many people prepare for something like this ahead of time at that level of detail, to where if there is a curveball thrown and you get sidetracked before the meeting, you're not just totally going in unprepared and having a scramble to come up with something, right? This is why I can't be beat, guys. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't mean that from an arrogant perspective, because look, if you do the same thing, you will not be beat. And just like Jared James says, and we got some exciting news coming up about Jared James soon. But consistency is undefeated. Consistency is undefeated. And I haven't met too many people that are more consistent on how they run their schedules and their business than me. That's how I'm able to run multi-millions of dollars worth of businesses combined and not be working 70 hours a week anymore. I mean, I've earned the right to leverage because I have great team members like you, Adam, and Sandra, and my partner Michael, people here on the call, to where I don't have to do it. I'm not just a one-man show, kind of like I started out with, where I wore 5 different hats, and including the janitor and everything else, but and fixing toilets, which that may sound like I'm exaggerating. No, I used to fix toilets in the offices. Crazy, but because I didn't work
It's all
for
those little
everybody.
things.
Yeah, I mean, just those little things, changing light bulbs in the beginning, but it's discipline, it's consistency, it's
Yeah.
just embracing the grind, embracing it. Once you embrace the grind, it becomes addictive. And the reason it becomes addictive is because you start seeing results of your efforts, and you're like, okay, I guess this stuff works. This hustle and grind works, and I'm actually getting leads, I'm getting listings, I'm getting escrows, I'm getting referrals, and boy, it's funny how that works. You're in the game, you're hustling, you're grinding, you're working, and you've got you got a discipline, the cadence going in your business. You have regular hours that you're open. Clients or prospects are reaching out to you during those hours, and you're gaining business. So it does become addictive.
It does. I mean, the grind, the hustle, it's there. And I see somebody with their headset on right now because he's already been grinding. I'm not sure how long he's been in the office today, but Vince, I see you came off mute right now. There's a lot of effective habits, prioritizing time. That's something you have to do on an everyday basis, right?
Yes, most definitely. One of my things is making sure that I am constantly on my schedule. up in the morning at a certain time, hitting gym at a certain time, and if not at the gym, at the office at a certain time. And it's funny because people will say, "Well, Vince, we see you get to the office between 8:30 and 9." You're right. I walk into the business office 8:30 and 9. I am at my home office usually in the morning, making sure I have my daily schedule ready to go, double checking if anything changed last night, any last minute emails. I have it written down what I'll be doing for the day, so I know that that's my task to get done. And then separating maybe an hour or two in between, at certain times for things that pop up out of nowhere that need to be addressed the day of.
Yeah, exactly. You gain these effective habits, and that's Mike. One of the things you talked about there. Effective habits of top performing agents, prioritizing the scheduling. Vincent saying, the same thing. I see a number of people in their office this morning already. I see Lena in the office right there. I see Cindy right there. I see Barbara right there in the office. Other people I'm sure are there, or maybe you're at your home office somewhere right now. Sandra is there right now as well. Who's there with her? Irma's there. But these people who are getting up, they knew that hey, it's Monday morning, rise and grind. It's the start of the new week and the scheduling portion of it to make sure you're there, you're ready to go. Because like you said with Jared, consistency is undefeated with it. So if you're consistently got that Monday morning schedule, your routine, you know that you're ready to go for the week. The call to action that you had, and thank you, Vincent. The call to action that you had was to embrace the hard work. It's not always easy to want to get up, to want to be, there at the office first thing in the morning. Sometimes it's a good thing because we know we're busy, we're working on stuff. So yeah, you want to get to the office, you want to close those deals, but embracing the hard work, Mike, talk a little more about that.
Yeah, I think, we need to qualify hard work with, you mentioned focus and what we're doing because it's easy just to say I'm going to go like grind and work hard today. But you got to know where you're going and what you're doing. It's, you don't want to just take off in the race like Forrest Gump, but be running in the wrong direction. It's like I think a lot of us have seen those reels before where you've got the little kids playing football, the entry level out of Pop Warner or whatever, maybe even younger, and they hand the football off to the kid, and he turns around and runs backwards to the opponent's end zone. He just didn't know, but he ran as hard as he could, and nobody caught him. But so let's figure out where we're going and what we're doing. I think when we talk about the context of grinding and hustling and working hard, we really want to do it with purpose. And so, what is our schedule? And we're going to talk about that in the next segment here. What are we doing during that schedule? Are we simply working hard at creating flyers or, working all day on a social media reel? Or maybe we do have an escrow open, so we're going to make a career out of it for that day and call and bug the agent and the escrow officer and the loan officer all day long and ask questions. I mean, we've worked with some of those people, right? That seems familiar to some of you, but we really need to be focusing on quantum activities or what we traditionally call income producing activities. So, are you spending most of your schedule or time working on things that are going to create leads and possibly lead to appointments and then possibly lead to a contract of some kind, right? So it's not about just working hard, not just running the race. It's really focusing on those things that are going to have an ROI on our business. So every day we show up, we have to show up with some kind of purpose. What are we going to accomplish today? What are our big activities? And again, I'm going to allude more to that in this next segment. But then be willing to start or complete what we start. So how we outlast the competition is we make sure we finish what we started and what we intended to do that day. It's so easy to start and then get to lunchtime and then get the call or somebody that pops by and says, "Hey, you want to go to lunch, downtown, and let's go hang out wherever." I mean, I won't mention any names, but I might incriminate somebody there by mentioning the name of a restaurant. But there's plenty of great restaurants in downtown Visalia that would be fun to hang out the rest of the day because there's generally a gang there doing that. And that's where people fall off. They showed up with purpose, they did some great things, and then they kind of dwindled and disappeared before they really finished. And I think that's a trap. And the problem is, guys, we know that the people are having the 3 hour liquid lunches, they're not producers. they're not winning, they're not being successful, they're not growing. Yeah, they're having a great time. It's fun, right? It's fun to hang out with friends and BS. And, isn't that why we got into real estate, to be able to have that freedom to go hang out with our friends whenever we want?
That's what everybody tells us, Mike.
Yeah, right. And I don't know. I mean, that's just loser mentality. I'm just being blunt, guys. That's a loser mentality. It's not always fun. When you embrace the grind, it means also embracing the fact that it's going to be repetitious boredom at times. And it's that repetitious boredom, though, that pays big dollars to where we're able to have more fun at a higher level than the people drinking their lunch away, because we're able to take those amazing vacations and have an amazing home and provide amazing experiences for our family and the people around us. And, a lot of you are on this call today that have been able to do that. And you wouldn't do it, you wouldn't trade that out for hanging out at a bar 3 hours every afternoon, and barely squeaking by. So make sure you not only show up with a purpose, but you're outlasting the competition.
Oh, definitely. So, thankfully, each chapter. So, for some of you guys who haven't had a chance to read the whole book yet, and this is a good way to go through each chapter, little bit by little. But at the end of each of these chapters, Mike basically gave us a Cliff Notes for what he talks about. So, on this one, there were 9 quantum principles for action that you guys can take away. Check out the book, but the 9 quantum principles: embrace the grind, set a discipline of regular hours, focus on income producing activities, develop resilience, harness the power of consistency, invest in continuous learning, use technology effectively, show up with purpose, and outlast the competition. Right now, outlasting the competition. I mean, here we are, we're talking about a big merger. So our competition, we're embracing it. We're going to outlast these other smaller ones because we're going to be that much more of a market share.
Right. Yeah, and I think one thing that we haven't touched on in this segment is just the resilience side of it, which, resilience and relentless are synonymous, guys. So, that's one of our 4 core values is we're relentless. We're relentless Century 21 agents. We never give up. We do what it takes to succeed, as long as it's legal and ethical, of course, but we're going to go the extra distance. We're going to go do the extra that nobody else is willing to do. And even when nobody's looking, if nobody's standing over our shoulder, we are going to do the right thing and do it better than anybody else. And the other part of being resilient, guys, is we're going to get beat up and knocked down, and we have been. It's been a sock in the gut the last couple years. I think we're finally seeing relief and getting out of it here, which is good. But man, I mean, talk about getting knocked down and having to get back up. I mean, I felt winded over the last year and a half. I mean, as a broker owner, watching the numbers and having to pay the bills, and wondering when's this going to stop? When are we going to start making money again, right? But knowing that you have to keep going, because look, if I don't keep going as your leader, then how can I expect you guys to be inspired to keep going? And at the end of the day, as I've talked in the book about, I had many moments, particularly early on and back in the small mid-state realty days, that I'm in debt. I'm putting commissions back into the business to pay the lease, and employees, and wondering, is this how it's going to be? Like, it'd just be better to go work for somebody else, or maybe even better yet, let's just go back to corporate America and get my 6-figure job back, but then work my butt off for the shareholders and nobody else, not myself, and I'll ultimately be in a, working myself to death or to the bone for the shareholder, and that's, I know that sounds kind of bad, but the reality is, when you get into this business as an agent, you're an entrepreneur, you're working for yourself now, and that meritocracy and those results come directly back to you, right? And that's where resilience comes in. And then it goes back to what we talked about last week, is the resilience is fueled by the big why. So when we go back and remember why we're doing this, why we got into it, why we've taken the risk of what we've done, whether it's financially or otherwise, go back to the big why. That helps me stay resilient and keep going in spite of adversity, in spite of failure, short-term failure. So just remember that, guys. I know some of you are like, well, I just had 2 deals fall out. I'm ready to go put my resume in out there and get a day job. You just got to keep going. It will get better. It will, as long as you keep going.
No, definitely. It's a good way for chapter 3 there. Is there anybody, and guys, feel free, like I said, this is one you guys can unmute yourself. If you don't want to bring it out loud, you can put it in the chat. You can send a reaction there. That way I can call on you if you like, because we want to make other people involved. Otherwise, I'll just start unmuting people and calling on you myself. I won't do that. I won't do that quite
Yeah,
yet. Don't
people are
worry.
dropping off right now as we speak.
I won't do that quite yet, but it's one of those to where, like I said, throw it out there if you want to. But Mike, that was a really good focus points there for 3, being resilient, staying relentless, and tying it back to Century 21. So we're going to talk about time quite a bit now in chapter 4. Chapter 4 is becoming a master of quantum time management. This is where you really kind of took off in the book. I felt, it's
Yeah.
there's so many different focus points to go on there. There's ways of mastering the time management, the pitfalls, a lot of that stuff. Talk to us a little bit about chapter 4.
Yeah, I think time management is one of those business terms we've heard a long time, and it just gets kind of old. It just becomes a platitude that people just start going, okay, yeah, time management, blocking time, here we go again. It's just the same old thing. And I like the opening quote to that chapter. And Seneca said, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it, right? So think about how much time we waste in our business and what we do each day that we could refocus and turn into something very meaningful and very, very powerful. And so when we look at time management in general, particularly quantum time management, it really is the so-called magic pill that separates amateur agents from the pros. And if you're not prioritizing and protecting your time or schedule, you're really going to fall behind and you're going to get beat. And so as we look at our schedule, my schedule, I just did it this morning for the week here, and you can either do it Sunday night or the morning of or even the Friday before. But I've got my weekly priority mapping mapped out. So I know about 80% of what I'm trying to accomplish and when I'm going to do it this week already. How many of you can honestly say that you have 80% of your week planned out and it's really planned around your quantum priorities, which, another term for that's big, hairy, audacious goals for the week. And, not very many people could say that. I know some of you do, or you already know you've got it planned out. You're very good at your schedule, but I know exactly the home runs I'm trying to hit this week and win. And I know what time of day, what day they're going to be, what time of day, and those times I'm going to block and protect. So I'm not going to let people infiltrate those times I'm focused on trying to achieve one of those things. But going back to just our overall calendar, we want to anchor that calendar around your big why for being in this, but also your big why for the week. What's the number 1 or 2 thing you're trying to accomplish this week? And you're going to anchor that schedule or calendar around that. And then, we're looking at each day, there's something important you're going to do towards that big goal or big why, which are really, again, they're your quantum priorities. And you're really just looking at winning each day, right? You're looking at completing, ideally at least 70, 80% more of your calendar. Do I hit 100% of my calendar each week or each day? Heck no. Some weeks I have. And that's a huge win. I can tell you the weeks that I've hit 100% and got everything crossed off or completed on that schedule. Man, that's been a big week and the dial has moved forward in a big way. But on average, I think I'm more like 80%. But I think most people are achieving 20%. That's if they have a schedule because they prioritize so poorly and they don't protect their schedule. They don't run their day, with their intentional routines, with the emphasis on income producing activities. They run it reactively. So they're waiting for things to happen. They're waiting for the phone calls to dictate what they're supposed to do. They're waiting for the gotta minutes or the emails, and they're just sitting there living by alerts. So rather than having an intentional schedule, they let alerts drive what they're doing every day. And I guarantee you, if alerts are ruling your world, guys, you guys are having a miserable time and not doing very much business. because how can we be on defense and score a touchdown? It's impossible, to be on defense all the time and have a high scoring game. Yeah, can you get a pick six once in a while? Yeah. How often do you see a defense pick off the ball and score a touchdown in a game? It doesn't happen most games, right? So if we're on defense, we're just probably not winning at all. So it's about flipping the script and the schedule, um, and utilizing quantum time management in particular. How you set up that schedule and how you manage it is what's going to magically create time, and really creating time at an exponential level, because when we block time out and focus on quantum priorities and don't let people interrupt us, including our own phones and alerts, we're actually creating more focus and time in general. So it's like you're slowing time down. It's like you're controlling the space-time continuum, and you're slowing time down because the level of deep focus and work you're achieving during that time period is maybe equivalent to an 8-hour day for a colleague. And you did it in maybe 90 minutes because you didn't allow yourself to get interrupted with the ding, ding, telephone calls, the alerts, checking every email that pops up. You focused on that task for 90 minutes and you got it done and you've got results out of it.
It's become so much more freeing for me to put my phone on do not disturb for so many different meetings that I'm on, because it does make a difference. I too, just like many other people, are a slave to seeing that notification pop up. Hey, what happened? Oh, this happened. Does it actually matter? Probably not. Is it something I could have not cared about for that time being? Probably. And that kind of, you touched on a number of things right there, mastering your time versus just managing your time. You talked about being not being reactive, but being proactive in that. And that's something that I try to emphasize a lot. And then you mentioned intentional routines. Intentional routines are something that I think was something I wrote down here, because on the notes here, one of the things in the chapter, you talk about the average agent, rarely having structured plans. Their plans, all right, they're going to start their computer just because it's a Tuesday and this is what I'm supposed to do on a Tuesday. I wake up, check my emails, I log into the MLS, and then what? Am I getting down this rabbit hole of social media? And the next thing you know, it's lunchtime. And have I really accomplished anything? Probably not, because it's not structured and you haven't, managed that time. Forget mastering your time. You haven't really managed your time right. And so finding those structured plans and having that set time is something that's extremely important. And like you said, it creates time because you are focused on those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, and again, it's about aligning that time with your goals, and checking emails and social media and reading the news feeds. While there's value to doing those things, it's certainly not moving the dial forward, right? And you could get lost down the rabbit hole, and then hours later, you've just wasted 4 hours with all of that stuff. And at the end of the day, it's we've got to prioritize our day with exact precision of what we're going to be doing and what we're out to accomplish. And that's what drives us. That's what really motivates us to want to follow that schedule and get addicted to that grind. Like I said before, is because you've discovered the magic pill. I mean, it's like this, following this schedule is where I get my ROI, and protecting it, at all cost is really has dictated my success. And again, enables me personally to run multiple entities and to do pretty amazing things. And part of that, also comes, I talk about in the chapter, and is just mastering the art of delegation as well, because we know we can't do everything and be everybody's everything, even though we want to. But there are things that we do need to look at delegating to people that perhaps can do it even better than we can. And, some of you are saying, well, I'd like to get to a point where I can delegate, but I'm maybe not doing any business yet, and that's okay. But there's still things you could probably find people to do for you that might be easier. You get to a certain level of production, I think transaction coordinators are extremely valuable at that point in order for you to get to the next level. That number's different for everybody, depending on how efficient you are with it or good you are at it. For me, it was about that 30 deal mark. I felt, I did pretty well with my files up to that point, but at that point, I was like, I just can't keep doing it, or else I'm working on files like 3 hours a day, and I really don't want to be doing that. I'd rather be making contacts and generating business and be out on appointments during those 3 hours. So, look at, delegating, and I say delegating shamelessly. People that are better at social media, maybe, get somebody's help. I know people that can't afford to hire somebody yet, although they might be able to here if they get more successful. Their family members, their kids that are far more tech savvy are helping them out with their social media marketing, and they're doing a great job. I mean, I've seen some of them that do an amazing job. I mean, those kids, that's what they should be doing for a living. And that also goes to just harnessing the power of technology and the automation that we already provide you as a company through all things Moxie. Moxie Engage being the leader of that, as far as managing our database and our CRM and leads, and be able to automate a lot of those functions out there on just staying in front of the customer and making those contacts. And that's a form of delegation as well. So
That's
those are
part of
things to keep in
the
mind.
efficient task management part
Yeah,
of the six core principles that you had in that chapter. Before we got to those six core in the book, you talked about the time management pitfalls that a lot of people have of, maybe always saying yes to things like, yes, I'll
yeah,
do this. This kind of goes back to delegating rather than finding somebody else to do it. You're saying, oh, you know what? Yes, I can do
yeah.
it, or yes, I'll do this. And it's sometimes you can't say yes. A lot of
Right.
times you need to say no.
Yeah, that's a good point, Adam. Thank you for bringing that up, because that was a big part of the chapter. When a lot of billionaires have been interviewed and asked what has attributed to their success. You'd think they'd be talking about their own good decisions or genius, or, super hard work, never give up. But a lot of the common answer, and for people like Warren Buffett and Richard Branson, who are two of the richest people in the world, and run huge conglomerates, although Warren's just finally kind of semi-retired, at 92 or 93 years old, whatever he is, which is crazy, is that they learn to say no really well. It's the power of no, and being okay with that, because as we get better at things and more successful, people are going to want more of our time. And we want to help people, so we're feel more obligated to say yes to anybody that is seeking our time or assistance. I get requests daily to help with different things. And I'm not talking about inside the company. I don't want you guys to think, well, you're just going to say no to me if I come. No, that's not what I'm saying, because you're a priority. You're what I prioritize. But if I'm asked to do a podcast or attend some kind of meeting or join a board somewhere or do something that's outside, that's not contributing to my quantum goals, the answer is almost always no these days. And it took me a long time to get to that point, because I wanted to help. I really had interest in doing a lot of those things. And I say no a lot daily, just so I can protect my schedule and what's important. So that is a pitfall, is saying yes to things that distract us. And
If
then,
anybody hears no more than real estate agents, I mean, there's entire books that are devoted to that, So
right.
we've heard it so often, yet we're afraid to say it ourselves sometimes, which is,
Yeah.
it's a weird dichotomy there. It shouldn't be that way. We should be okay saying no. And that was something that I really took
It,
from that chapter.
yeah, and it's not that it's a blunt no. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be a jerk about it. It's like, no, sorry, go ask somebody else. It's just, look, hey, right now I've got I'm pretty booked, or I have a really busy schedule this week or this month, whatever the time frame is. So look, it's a no for now, but maybe keep me in mind in the future. Or if you'd like, I could give you a referral of somebody that might be able to help, which I commonly do. I commonly say, hey, I have somebody else that might be really good for that. Would you like me to connect you? So it's not, you don't have to be a jerk about it by any means. Look, your friends want you to go to the 2 hour lunch downtown or wherever, and it's like, hey guys, man, I'm really busy on my schedule today. I got a lot going on, but thanks for asking me. Hey, let me know next time you go. That's it. And they'll ask you next time more than likely. So
Exactly. And that's part of the, you get to the yeses so often, to where you have to allow yourself. I mean, most everybody here, you're still an independent contractor. You are the entrepreneur. You are the manager of your time there. So you have to allow yourself for as much. The Seneca quote, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Well, there's also, a George Strait quote. I ain't here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. So it's kind of a weird thing there between Seneca and George Strait. But you also talked in that yes part about vampires. And we're not talking about Stephanie Meyer's vampires. You're talking about other types of bloodsuckers that could potentially, and I say bloodsuckers, but the vampires, what are vampires, Mike?
well, I mean, in the literal sense, we know what they are. They suck our blood, and sometimes they convert us to one of them, or sometimes we're gone. But vampires are people that just drain us of our energy, of our time, for no good purpose. They're just constantly taking and not giving, and there's no reciprocity there. It's just they need more and more of whatever your time from a social perspective, your time from just help because they can't help themselves. And some of those people were related to somehow, right? And it's scary, but we have to separate ourselves from the vampires. We have to make sure that at minimum we're equipped with a very good cross and holy water and garlic, right? And make sure that, look, you aren't going to drain my time. I'm no longer allowing you to do that. You're not going to take my peace. You're not going to take my time. You're not going to derail me off my schedule. This is what I'm going to do no matter what. And, you need to go after somebody else. It's time to separate yourself. So if we really ask ourselves, just starting with our own circle, the top 5 people we spend the most time with, would you consider any of those people vampires to where they're just constantly draining you unfairly of your peace, your productivity, your happiness? And it's probably time to make some circle changes. And again, my disclaimer, guys, is if that's a husband or wife or spouse, I don't want to create a divorce. So don't go home and tell them that I told you this. But if that is the case, guys, I'm not a marriage counselor or whatever, but you got to start having a really tough conversation because people should support each other, right? And they shouldn't be draining each other. So and I've had those people in my circle and not that long ago, and I had to make some changes, guys. Those that follow my story know that, I had a big one that I made over the last, a year and a half. And you become better, you become stronger for it. You can become just much more positive and effective in it when you get rid of the vampires out of your life.
That's right. The power of time compels you. The power of
Yes.
time compels
I
you.
love I love that. Yes. Love that.
Well, we're getting close to 10 o'clock, but the 6 core principles of that chapter of, becoming a master of quantum time management, mindful prioritization, weekly priority mapping, minimize distractions, flexibility and adaptability, effective task management, and time value alignment. You kind of talked about that time value alignment already, the high impact results. Are you getting that return on investment of your time with people? That's a big thing. Think about that ROI. We talk about that so often with your own time. Are you getting that ROI?
Yeah.
So those 6 core principles, developing that part of it, Mike, where did that come from?
Well, again, I mean, it's just a part of how you shape your schedule, and it's the time value is where you're spending your time, what's the expected ROI, and there's quantum priorities that are the big hairy audacious goals that are going to move your dial forward. There's must do's, there's things that you must do, and that's the repetitious boredom, that things that you have to do, maybe customer service related, that it's just you're not ready or able to maybe delegate yet because you haven't grown enough resources to do that. And then there's things that we must delegate. And that's if you look at the weekly priority mapping schedule within that program, and it is a program I have trained on, I have developed, guys. It's out there. Probably do another one again this year. The bottom line is those tools are there to where you could shape your schedule with that intentional strategy and manage it daily on where those things fall. The one thing that I wanted to go back to, Adam, is in addition to just delegating, and or just trying to focus on what are the income producing or the quantum priorities that are going to move the dial forward, is what are your biggest time wasters? What's your, most recurring time waster that if you really are honest about writing down all the things you feel that waste your time on a daily, weekly basis, let's talk about maybe eliminating one each week. And what are you going to replace that with that's something positive that will move the dial forward? So, map out your week the way it stands now. Write your schedule out now, what your typical schedule for you looks like, and then write down in that, when you really review that thing honestly, what are the biggest, maybe the top 5 time wasters that are taking up too much of your time, that there's an opportunity to either narrow down to a much smaller period or just eliminate entirely. And I think social media is going to be on the top of a lot of people's list, guys. I guarantee you there's people on this call that are sitting on social media anywhere between 5 to 8 hours a day. Like if you add up all the hours you're on it from waking to going to bed, you're on it 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. Look at the time. Your iPhones, your smartphones would tell you how much screen time you have on those apps. You don't know it because you're just popping in, scrolling here and there intermittently all day. But once you add up the totality of it, you're like, you've just wasted 5 hours that day on it. What if you took most of those 5 hours and did something positive to improve yourself, or to talk to people about buying or selling real estate, to create an email drip campaign, to whatever, a nice social media reel with a call to action. Think about how you can transform your life by getting rid of just that one time waster.
It's a big thing. I mean, quantum time management, and for a lot of people, you're not going to start by mastering it. You need to start by managing it. And I think that was
Yeah.
a really good expectation that you had set towards that chapter is, in order to get to this, you have to get to, step one first. So you're not going to make this huge jump over there. You have to start with these little steps. And just like Mike said, he gave us all kind of a challenge right now. What are our top 5 time wasters? Have you set your schedule for the week? By the time that, Friday evening rolls around, or even Sunday rolls around, do you have these things mapped out and planned for you? What's going to make you more successful this week? So that next Monday, whenever we reconvene, a challenge that I'll throw out there to everybody right now: come back next Monday. What was one thing, if somebody wants to come off mute next week, what was one thing that you were able to, hey, this is a time waster. I maybe not even got rid of it cold turkey, but you just became cognizant of it. You were aware, and you just kind of trickled down and not went as long into that. So that's something that, I'll throw out there for next week whenever Mike comes back with everybody and Sandra takes over next Monday as well. But Mike, was there anything else from chapter 4 that you'd wanted to really go over?
I think we covered everything. I guess it's just asking yourself some questions coming out of this, and really starting with, what are your top 3 income producing activities, and how many minutes per day or each week are you really giving it right now? Are you only giving it one day a week, or is it daily, and how much time? And then what I said earlier, just about getting rid of the time wasters. Let's eliminate something major this week. It's hard to just get all of them done at the same time. I mean, it's too I guess I don't know. It's just hard. It's like an addiction, right? You can't just go cold turkey off of any addiction, but start by eliminating one time waster this week. And then find one thing you can maybe delegate in your schedule, that, whether it's, somebody, I mean, out there. Some of you are thinking, well, who do I delegate it to? Well, there's things that, we can help you out with. Our agent service coordinator in your office maybe can help you out with. That's what they're there for. They're there to help you win. Sabrina, our marketing manager, maybe can help you with some marketing that you're struggling with. And what can you help delegate? And really last is just how are you going to protect your schedule from being interrupted during your quantum goal sessions? How are you going to protect it? Like if you're in an office, that's easier. Maybe you put a sign on the door, in a meeting, and please do not disturb. Or if you don't have an office, maybe you find a quiet place or go into an area, conference room, or an unused office. In the Visalia office, maybe you go down to the basement. It's a great place to prospect down there. It's super quiet. But how are you going to protect yourself from being interrupted during those quantum goal schedules? So those are things I will leave you with.
Excellent. Those are great, great chapters this week. If anybody wants to throw themselves off mute, now is the time. If you got any reactions, feel free. If you want to stay silent, then that is okay too. But I know that Mike and Sandra started this to get everybody kind of involved. So don't be afraid to throw yourself out there, to throw yourself into the conversation. Vince, thanks for jumping on for a minute there earlier as well. And to everybody who's on live right now. We appreciate you guys. Have a great week as well. Mike, the final message is yours before we end this.
I think great things are ahead of us, guys. I love what the market's doing. Everything's lining up for us to have a strong year-end finish. Right now, the company's having their best month of the year in September, which I've never seen. Never seen September being the best month of the year. So I think we're turning the corner and we're out there, gaining market share as we speak. And I do like the news about Compass today. I mean, just to become that substantial here by next year as an overall conglomerate, I'm super excited.
Awesome. Well, we will see you all next week. Thank you for joining, everybody. Have a great Monday. Next week is chapter 5 and 6. Yes, Vera, chapters 5 and 6. We'll see you guys then.